October 8, 1976. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park is bathed in the crisp, golden hues of autumn. It is one of the most visited natural sanctuaries in America, a place where families, hikers, and school groups come to escape the noise of modern life. On this particular afternoon, a bus from Bearden High School arrives at the parking lot near Clingman's Dome, the highest point in Tennessee. Among the students is 16-year-old Trenny Lynn Gibson. She is energetic, well-liked, and surrounded by her peers. By mid-afternoon, the students are hiking a well-traveled, paved trail loop. The group is fluid, with teenagers constantly overtaking one another, laughing and calling out through the trees. At approximately 3:00 p.m., Trenny is walking with a small group of classmates. She steps slightly ahead, rounding a sharp bend in the trail, disappearing from their view for just a matter of seconds. She is never seen again. When her classmates round the same bend moments later, the trail is empty. There is no scream, no sound of a struggle, no crashing brush. Trenny Gibson has simply evaporated into the mountain air. Within hours, the park initiates one of the largest search and rescue operations in its history. Bloodhounds, helicopters, and hundreds of ground searchers comb the steep ridges, the deep gaps, and the dense forest floor. They find absolutely nothing. No dropped personal items, no footprints, no clothing fibers. For decades, the official narrative has remained unchanged. A tragic case of a young hiker who took a wrong turn, succumbed to the treacherous terrain, and was swallowed by the vast wilderness. But mainstream investigations have overlooked a terrifying chronological and geographic anomaly. To understand what really happened to Trenny Gibson, we have to look back 7 months prior, to a completely different crime scene hundreds of miles away. March 1, 1976. Bethesda, Maryland. A highly intelligent, bilingual State Department official named William Bradford Bishop Jr. brutally bludgeons his mother, his wife, and his 3 young sons to death inside their suburban home. Bishop, an experienced outdoorsman with a degree from Yale and a master's in Italian, loads the bodies into the back of his family's station wagon and drives south into North Carolina, where he burns the remains in a remote logging area. By the time local police discover the horrific scene in Maryland, Bradford Bishop has a 1-week head start on the law. He is added to the FBI's most wanted list, triggering an international manhunt. Federal agents track his credit card usage and physical sightings as he flees westward. Then, the trail goes dead in the worst possible place. On March 18, 1976, park rangers find Bishop. Abandoned 1974 Chevrolet station wagon parked deep inside the Elkmont area of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Inside the vehicle, investigators find a map, dog biscuits, and a shotgun case, but no sign of Bishop. A massive federal dragnet sweeps the immediate vicinity, but the elite survivalist has already melted into the dense, unyielding forest canopy. He has successfully broken from the grid. Do the math. March 1, 1976 to October 8, 1976. Trenny Lynn Gibson went missing exactly 7 months and 7 days after Bradford Bishop fled into the wind. While the FBI operating under the assumption that Bishop had used his diplomatic background to flee the country on a fake passport, a darker, highly plausible tactical reality exists. Bishop never left the mountains. For an elite survivalist dodging a federal death sentence, the Great Smoky Mountains weren't a temporary hiding spot. They were the ultimate fortress. By October, he had been living as a wild outlaw in the deep backcountry for over 200 days. But as the brutal Appalachian autumn began to turn toward winter, a desperate man living in the shadows would find his resources dwindling, his clothes rotting, and his survival severely threatened. When 16-year-old Trenny Gibson stepped off the paved trail near Clingman's Dome that afternoon, she didn't just wander into nature. According to this investigative theory, she walked directly into a collision course with a monster. True crime profiling tells us that a high-profile fugitive like Bradford Bishop is not hunting for victims out of a premeditated urge for public attention. He is driven entirely by an absolute necessity for concealment. He is trying to remain dead to the world. If a teenager wanders just a few hundred yards into the brush to take a photograph or look at the scenery, She risks stumbling directly into a makeshift hidden campsite, a water collection point, or a survival cache utilized by the fugitive. In that exact second, a desperate man facing execution panics. A single witness returning to a school bus means park rangers, federal marshals, and tracking dogs converging on his coordinates within an hour. To secure his anonymity, he commits a crime of elimination. He subdues her instantly, completely silencing the threat to his freedom. But why was no body ever found? The answer lies in the terrifyingly unique layout of the Smoky Mountains terrain. The park is famous for geographic features known to locals as Laurel Hells. These are massive, sprawling thickets of mountain laurel and rhododendron, so incredibly tangled and dense that they are completely impenetrable to standard search teams and entirely invisible to aerial surveillance. You can stand 5 yards away from a structure hidden inside a laurel hell and have absolutely no idea it exists. Furthermore, in 1976, the backcountry was littered with hundreds of abandoned pioneer cabins, forgotten homesteads from before the park's establishment, and deep limestone rock overhangs. A seasoned outdoorsman could easily occupy one of these dead zones for months or even years without ever crossing paths with a park ranger. This theory challenges the tragic assumption that Trenny's life ended on the ridge that afternoon. Instead, it introduces a far more prolonged psychological nightmare, a long-term wilderness captivity scenario. Borrowing from the cold, survivalist psychology of a predator who weaponizes the environment, a captor deep in the high-elevation backcountry doesn't need physical walls, padlocks, or steel chains to prevent an escape. The landscape itself acts as the prison guard. Consider the reality of a 16-year-old girl pulled into the deep woods. If she breaks away and attempts to run, she steps out into thousands of acres of identical, jagged ridgelines, vertical drop-offs, and sudden, blinding mountain fog that can swallow an entire peak in a matter of minutes. Without a map, a compass, or extensive wilderness training, running blindly doesn't mean escaping to safety. It means risking a fatal plunge down a hidden ravine or dying of hypothermia within a matter of hours. By weaponizing the sheer vastness of the national park, the captor establishes absolute compliance without needing physical restraints. He controls the fire, the snared game, the clean water, and the shelter. He becomes the sole gatekeeper to life itself, twisting the dynamic into an intense psychological game of survival, where the captive is forced into total dependency on the very ghost the rest of the United States government is hunting. Did Trenny Gibson perish in a tragic hiking accident, leaving behind a body that thousands of searchers somehow missed? Or did a high school field trip accidentally collide head-on with an elite federal fugitive, trapping a young girl in an invisible fortress of solid stone and dense fog? As long as the deep hollows of the Great Smoky Mountains keep their secrets, the shadow of William Bradford Bishop Jr. will remain forever tied to the vanishing point at Clingman's Dome.